Compound inequalities. Compound inequalities are a special type of inequality, and I have some fill in the blanks in the beginning, so if you need to pause it before we fill it in, please do so you can copy it down. So this says compound inequalities are formed by blank two inequalities with the word blank or the word blank. So here we go. Compound inequalities are formed by combining two inequalities with the word and or the word or. I know that's weird because or comes close, but you're either going to see and or. So this time, rather than graphing one inequality and solving one inequality and being done, every time you solve a compound inequality, you have to solve two. So the first examples we're going to look at are ones that look like this. So if I look at number one, you should know what kind of inequalities these are. These are and inequalities. And inequalities are a little special because they can look a little different. So it's important that when we're doing this, you are noticing that and has a kind of one additional way that it can be represented compared to or. So if I wanted to graph x is greater than 2, typically I'd put 2 on the number line and I just graph it. But I also have to graph x is less than or equal to 5. So that means I need to make a number line with both of these numbers. So I'm going to make a number line. I'm going to make it kind of long. And I'm going to put 2 here. And then I'm going to do some bigger. There's my 5. So I'll go a couple bigger. And I'll at least put 1 smaller. Okay, so I make sure that both of these numbers fit on the line. So we'll make this step. Draw number line to fit both numbers. Oops, sorry, you can't see it. Okay, step 2 is going to be, you're going to use open and close circles. At those numbers. Now this is where you definitely probably want to use a pencil, or you can use kind of 2 different colors so you know you did it. So if I start with x is greater than 2, if I think about this, well, it's not equal to it. So I'm going to make a couple of notes for myself. This is going to be an open circle, and it's going to go to the right because it's greater. And this is going to be a closed circle, and it's going to go to the left. So if I come down to 2, I'm going to put an open circle. And I know it goes up and to the right. And 5 is a closed circle, and I know it goes up and to the left. Well, what do you notice about this? If I were to keep going, could I go past 6? No, because 5's coming in. So all I do is it's everything in here. So it means any number that is bigger than 2, so 2.1, right? Or less than 5, 4.99999, or 5 will work. So I like to try to write my little notes for myself and then figure out if I'm inside or sometimes it's on the outside. Okay, so now we're going to solve number 2. So number 2 just looks a little bit different. You have to do some solving. So I'm going to solve this one and ignore this one, and then solve this one and ignore this one. Okay, so let's start. So box our variable, draw a line. So we need to get rid of plus 4. So we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. These should be getting easier now. 1 minus 4 is negative 3, less than or equal to 3x. So now I need to isolate the x. So I need to remove the 3, and that's multiplication when it's right next to each other. So I need to divide by 3, divide by 3. I get negative 1 is less than or equal to x. Remember, we should flip that around. So we're going to get x is greater than or equal to negative 1. Because I flip these, so I have to also flip my signs. That way it looks like that. So if I were to think when I'm going to graph this in a little bit, if I have this kind of inequality that's equal to it, that means it's going to be closed and it's pointing this way. Okay, the arrow is pointing to the right, so it would go to the right, plus it's greater. Okay, now, then I'm going to go over and solve the other inequality. Okay, I just realized that this I forgot to underline, so it's greater than or equal to, so make sure you didn't accidentally do the same thing that I did on my paper. Okay, so now I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to box my variable. I know it looks ugly right now. We'll fix it in the next line. So it's plus 1, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. I'm going to get negative 6x greater than or equal to negative 6. Right, I'm going to box my variable again. And I need to get rid of the negative 6. It's multiplication, so I have to divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. Now you should remember, when you divide or multiply by a negative, you have to flip the sign. So my next line, I have to flip that guy. So these cancel. I get x is greater than or equal to, just kidding. See, I just did it for you, so that's great. X is less than or equal to 1. Okay, so if I have x is less than or equal to 1, that means that it's a closed circle. And if I look this time, it's pointing over here, so that means it's pointing to the left. So from our steps before, we said, okay, you have to get both of them on the number line. So I have to get negative 1 and 1. So negative 1 and 1 smaller, and then 0, 1, 2, and I can fit 3. So I'm going to now go and graph them. So here I have a closed circle at negative 1, and it's going to go to the right. And then I have a closed circle at 1, and that one goes to the left. So just like before, that means any number in here, so I can make this this band pretty thick, will work. So any kind of number, integer, decimal in that section will be a solution to this inequality. Okay, this is the last type of and inequality, and this one looks a little bit different. You'll notice you don't see any words here at all, so that's why it looks different. So here's what I try to explain to people. Pretend that, so this says negative 5 is less than or equal to x plus 1, and then there's another inequality. So I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. So you see that equation? So I'm going to copy down that equation. So negative 5 less than or equal to x plus 1. So that's one of them. But now, if I want to do the one with 10 is less than 1 plus x, well, another inequality, so I'm going to cover that part up. So my other one is x plus 1 is less than 10. So essentially, if you were to draw lines here, you could see which ones you should include or not. So I like to separate them out. Now this becomes a super easy solve for both of them because they're only one step. So if I want to solve this one, x plus 1, I need to get rid of plus 1, so I minus 1, minus 1. So I get negative 6 less than or equal to x. And remember, try to flip it around. So if you want to reverse and swap these, you swap this. So I get this as my first one. So think about, what is that? Well, that means it's closed, and that means it goes to the right. Okay, and if you go to this one and box it, now it's saying plus 1 again, so I'm going to minus 1 again, and I get x is less than 9. I don't have to flip this guy. Now this one is not equal to, so that's open, but it's pointing this way, so it's going to go to the left. So this is actually going to be a pretty long number line because I have to get all the way from negative 6 to 9. So that you're going to have to kind of put your numbers pretty small together. And I had a hard time fitting it, as you can see. That's okay. All right. Oops, you can't even see mine. So I had to squeeze it in there. So now I'm just going to go to 9, and it's open, and it's going to go to the left, and the negative 6 is closed, and it goes to the right. So this is a long kind of number line. Sometimes people will skip, but that's okay. So it looks like this. So there's a lot of possibilities for this one. So the good news is that's it for and. So the only tricky one really is examples like number 3. So for or you literally, the only way they can show you is if they show you the word or. So it's pretty simple. These are going to look the same way, like how you do it. Your steps are the same, but your pictures, if you notice for all the ands, it was everything in the middle. These are going to look a little bit different. So if I have to graph this, y is less than negative 2, that would be a closed circle. and it's pointing this way, right? Here's my inequality pointing to the left, so that means it would go to the left. And this one, it would be an open circle, and it's pointing to the right, so it's going to go to the right. And if you see my arrows, see how that matches with that, and this matches with this? That's how I'm figuring it out. All right, so we go to our number line, and we have to get -2 there. And you have to go until you can get to the number you need. Sometimes you can go a little past it. And then we'll see what this looks like. So close at -2, so it's closed here. But this time it's going to go to the left, okay? And 1, it's open, oh, and this one's going to the right. So you immediately should notice, okay, so and stuff was like this, right in the middle. Now ors is going in opposite directions. That is how they will look when you're graphing compound inequalities. So ors will go away from each other and ands will come in towards each other. One more example. Okay. Super quick, super easy, 2-step equations. So we're going to box our variable. It says -2x plus 1. So I need to get rid of plus 1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. Bring -2x down. These cancel. Bring down your inequality. 3 minus 1 is 2. I'm going to divide by a -2. Divide by a negative. Remember, I just said I'm dividing by a negative, so I have a flip here. And yes, I write that every time. So that means I get x. I have to flip this. See, I remembered this time. -1. So x is less than -1. So let's make our jots. Just less than, so that means it's an open. And it looks like this, so it goes that way. To the left. Okay, the second half of this one. Box it, draw your line. So I need to move +4. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. -3x comes down. These cancel. Less than or equal to -1. Okay, box my variable. I have to get rid of the -3, so I'm going to divide by -3 on both sides. So I get x. Again, I just divided by a negative, so I have to flip. So I'm going to flip my sign and get greater than or equal to. So negative divided by negative is a positive. 1 divided by 3 is just 1/3. And you can use your calculator or you'll get 0.33. I would leave it as a fraction. So this one is closed and this one is going to the right, which it should be because as we learned from above, right, we should have opposites for or. Whenever you see or, it should go opposite directions. So this one's a little bit hard and some people get worried, oh, I made a mistake. Fractions are your friends. That is fine. So here's my -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And people are like, well, what do I do with the 1/3? Well, the 1/3 is between 0 and 1. So I'm just going to go like this, and I'm going to put my 1/3 there. It doesn't have to be perfect. These are not drawn perfectly every time. So I'm going to go to -1. I'm going to put an open, and this one's going to the left. You can go up a little above, especially if you have only one color. And this one is closed at 1/3, and it's going to go to the right. I know that my picture looks good because it's an or and they're going in opposite directions. You can always double check your circles and double check your solving. That is it for compound inequalities.